Dear participants, I'm Solomiia Albota from Lviv Polytechnic National University, and my paper entitled Creating a Model of War and Pandemic Apprehension Textual Semantic Analysis. Having studied multifaceted nature of social networks for a couple of years, we encounter the tendency in its social affordance. Although commenting process has become one of the most studied areas within social media, we cannot do without analyzing such linguistic factors of media affordance as cultural and social, as well as cognitive perceptions of utterances. In our case, the attention is paid to the linguistic nature of social network comments regarding semantics of war and pandemic notions. As the notions under investigation imply cultural senses of chaos and loss, we claim that emotional states will dominate while analyzing their semantic nature, which is common for expressive speech act. The chosen material for the research is Reddit media. The social network unites different layers of population users, which enables the communicative actions to be both personal and public-oriented. To reveal the hidden or visible attitudes towards social commenting upon war and pandemic concept is of importance, as the purpose of this paper is to create a general model of war and pandemic apprehension through application of semantic analysis of the Reddit post comments and allocating their semantic groups. As we study social media through linguistic interdisciplinary areas, there is a necessity to unfold the notion not only of social affordance, but also cultural affordance. Emphasizing the mutual correspondence between action and speech, when we claim that what a user intends to say presupposes his future course of the follow-up actions and vice versa. Speech acts correlate with the verbal messages being uttered either online or in real, thus providing this communicative meaning sense. We linguistically trace the dynamics of war and the change of human war apprehension. The reason for choosing concept of war and pandemic is substantiated by the fact that humanity has recently faced the two main catastrophes: pandemic spread with its different forms of detection like COVID-19 and its follow-up diseases and Russian-Ukrainian war, which affect the whole world in particular. We consider the main task of this research to linguistically review the degree of war and pandemic apprehension, applying textual semantic analysis to the Reddit social media post comments. So firstly, we have chosen the Reddit social communities with the biggest amount of comments to the war post and the least commented ones in order to have a full picture for a cognitive model of war implications. Secondly, by using linguistic markers of implicit semantic nature of utterances and explicit ones, we single out commands which relate to war in Ukraine regarding communicative actions preferable to social media. The third step of research is application of textual semantic analysis to the allocated textual fragments of the Reddit comments. So the following representation of the linguistic data obtained is provided in the form of semantic groups. And after each statement in brackets, we provide linguistic interpretation with marking its implicitness or explicitness and the type with a subtype of particular communicative action. The last step of the research methodology is the application of a software toolbox LIWC22. We may say that the amount of positive and negative tone of Reddit statements is equal. 1.67%. It means that even if war as a concept bears a total negative sense, textual semantic analysis allows to unfold other senses of war implications among online users, which have a semantic nature of positive deeds for the Ukrainian glory and victory. We linguistically processed all community comments mentioned with 579 textual fragments referring to war implications. There are noticeably 27 cases of explicit, positive, negative, and a rational attitude towards war with a single implicitness, one case of impossibility to accept military actions. The amount of positive and negative tone statement is equal, 1.77%. As the more foreign support we get, which is a success, the more the satisfaction of the enemy grows. After obtaining linguistic results on war-related base within the social media, we suggest creating the first linguistic and cognitive submodel of war implications, which involves all evaluative measures and assessment features from the above semantic groups. Another concept to be regarded in the same semantic dimension is pandemic. In terms of Reddit pandemic-oriented posts, we linguistically started all community comments mentioned, 301 comments with 295 textual fragments. So we traced the repetitiveness of the same semantics under 3 Reddit semantic groups: the warning, threat, and fear of possible recurrence of the pandemic. Negative tone statements, 2.67, outweigh positive ones, 1.45%, as there is a sanitization process of threat of recurrent disease spread and still users adhere to precaution measures. Cognitive processes, 11.68%, dominate over negative tone statement as they absorbed both negative experience of users towards pandemic and defensive mechanisms against possible illnesses. The textual semantic analysis was applied to community comments mentioned, 183 comments, with 179 textual fragments concerning pandemic consequences. We state that the semantization process between both semantic groups of negativity and cognitive processes may be blurred, as cognitive mechanisms within the allocated statements are inseparable from each other. We state that the software application processed textual fragments with this amount of usage, occurrences 1.3, and categorized them with the mentioned theme under the positive semantic group. Although negativity is high, 2.17%, due to semantics of dissatisfaction of job requirement under pandemic conditions, cognitive processes dominate, 13.45%. Having generated linguistic outcomes in pandemic-related online comment section, the second linguistic and cognitive model, submodel, pandemic consequences, is considered. The model compresses the analyzed semantic groups above. Negative tonal statements concerning virus spread apprehension prevail. The Reddit war-oriented community post comments, mainly their statistical representation, are provided in the first line of table, where WI abbreviation stands for the first linguistic and cognitive submodel war implications. The Reddit pandemic-oriented community post comments, their statistical representation in particular, provided in the second line of the table. The PC abbreviation stands for the second linguistic and cognitive submodal pandemic consequences. Such military unawareness and doubts concerning both sides of war participants are shaped by cognitive mechanisms of war perception. A model of war and pandemic apprehension is considered. It is based on 2 submodels, war implication and pandemic consequences, which have been preceded by textual semantic analysis and linguistic interpretation methods. Both models are shaped by theory of speech acts. So our study showed that expressives with subtypes of expressing personal feelings were not that much observed, only one case. Instead, representatives with statement subtypes and verdictives with negative assessment towards utterances of other users, appraisal subtype, were widely applied without appropriate cultural background. Online users fail in tendency of commenting, thus causing discomfort conditions for discussion among other competent users. And finally, mutual connection between WI and PC submodels is established. We say that both submodels imply consequences of linguistic and social, as well as psychological, cultural, and cognitive phenomena. Pandemic is considered of war, one of war manifestations, as it is also a powerful weapon in a figurative way against humanity. At the same time, war triggers world calamities, and pandemic is one of its biggest levers. To summarize, the phenomenon of Russian-Ukrainian war, as well as the notion of pandemic, was considered. The complex linguistic methodology of shaping a linguistic and cognitive perception of the Reddit war pandemic comment relation was introduced. So what concerns perspective, the semantics of Ukrainian victory in Russian-Ukrainian war and its linguistic cognitive mechanisms may be studied and developed in further scientific exploration. Thank you so much for your attention.